So I got my rough piston rod. So the next part I'm going to work on is I'm working on getting the length of this piston down to 0.75, okay? And it works out pretty easily because I have a work stop that I can use here. Now, when you grip this thing, you're going to grip it in the jaws like that. You're going to play a little game of being too tight or too loose. If you gorilla the thing, the jaws can produce enough force to actually distort this and put jaw marks in there. If you don't care, it's not a big deal, right? But if you want it to look reasonably nice, okay, you're going to not want to do that, okay? Now, brass is pretty resilient. So we're going to install it, and then I'm going to push it all the way up against the jaws. Because that back side is finished. We're only working on the length. So I'm going to use that as a work stop. So that if I take it out to measure it, I can put it back in, and it goes back in the same place. That's exactly what we're going to do. So, second verse, same as the first. And we're going to back this off. Carriage up against the stop. Lock it down. Bring the tool up against the work here, very close to it. Reset 0. So it's closer to 0 when I go to reset it. And I'm just going to take off enough to clean it up.
He's just doing the face again.
Okay, cleaned up. Ideally, blue dye will help you. I'm going to reset that now to 0. I can now take the work out. Take a quick measure. In my case, I'm at 848. Right, so I need to take off how much? 98, right? I want to go down to 750. Now, because this is such a small diameter, okay, if I try to whack off almost 100 thousandths in one hit, this is so small it's liable to break off, okay? So we'll probably take 50 and then 40 and then 8, ideally. Let's come down. So let's do 30, 40, 50. And so in this case, I'm going to leave the carriage in place, locked in place. There's no reason for you to move the carriage. So now all my work is done here. Just move it in, cross line. Move it in, cross line, face it. So scratch that. 50 is too much for this tool. It's just not enough tool there. So probably 20 or 25 a pass until you get it in. So I'm going to take another 75. Okay, so that's someone has adjusted the tool. It's not in the center anymore. Okay, I took 90 all total. Let's see where I'm at. I'm at 751. That's probably close enough. Like I said, we got a 3 decimal place number. Plus or minus 5 is great. So I'm going to call that a win. Right? I'm at 751. Happy. All right. So now all we got left is we need to turn the outside here down to fit our piston. Okay. So let me talk about how to set this up to do that. And I forgot to bring the tool out here, but we have to fit this to your specific cylinder, okay? So in order for us to do that, we gotta measure the inside of that cylinder. Just because we reamed it with a reamer doesn't necessarily mean it's exactly 0.5 inches, okay? It's gonna be really close, but whether or not the reamer was a little dull, or how fast you were turning it, whether you were using coolant or not, can actually affect that size ever so slightly. And we have to fit this thing very, very closely to that cylinder so that when there's oil around it, it'll act as a seal. So we have less than 1/1000th of an inch clearance between the inside of the cylinder and the outside of this piston to make all that work. If it's too loose, air will blow past it and this thing won't work, right? If it's too tight, it's a one-way piston. It'll go in and never come back out. Right? So let's show you this. So in order to start the turning process, I will again place it in here. I'm going to leave my stop where I'm at. Right? I'm going to leave myself about, use your scale, use about 2/10 clearance between the back of between the jaws, the end of the jaws, and the bottom of that piston, just like that, 2/10. Okay? Then lock it down. So with my carriage up against the stop, one more time, we're just going to set the length of cut. Now we don't really care about the length of cut here. We just want to make sure that we can stop halfway between the end of our piston and the jaws, right? So that our work stop catches us so we don't crash into the jaws, right? And so we get a nice clean cut all the way across. Just like we would be doing with our flywheel, right? Remember we set that so just as we come off, we have a little bit of clearance, right? Same basic principle, right? So I got that. Snug down. All right, so the process is the same. Now, the cool part is when we touched off last time to set the diameter out here for our rod, we came in, right? We brought the tool in close to our work, put the piece of paper in there, set it to 0, and then we took a little bit of material off. Once it was round, we set it to 0. Well, we haven't changed this yet, right? So ideally, if I did everything right, so I'm very close to my 0. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm just going to use that 0 that already exists, haven't done anything. So when I take a cut, this should be completely round and roughly the same starting size that we started at last time. So let's see. Really close. See, it's not quite as round as we would like, but we're close enough. So I'm going to take about 5 more. 2, 4, let's make it 6 because I'm lazy. This particular part, be ginger about it. Take little bites, okay? There's not a lot of meat out here to take off to get it down to 499. If you take off a lot, it'll go undersized, you'll start over, okay? We just want to make it round. And at this point, we do not want to take it out of the chuck at all.